Welcome back, y'all. It's Brian with the Unstuck Sessions podcast. I think we're on episode 4. Today's episode, I brought back one of our favorite guests, Les from Less is More Productions. We're going to get in talking about his journey with marketing a creative business. And that's what it is. So you're going to listen to us nerd out about marketing and computer stuff. And hopefully we have a good time with this one. So what I'll do is I'll roll the intro and then we'll be back. All right. So for those that don't know, my guest is Les. We've done a couple of other podcasts together, so I encourage you to go check them out with What's the Business. And I think I did back when I was still doing Brian Sells Words, which all of these are related, but they're still different. They're different genres. We're talking about different things here. And today's episode is going to be talking about the design business because here's the thing. Marketers, people who do marketing services, we have to figure out a marketing strategy too. And it's not easy for us. Sometimes it's actually harder for us because we know some of the back end stuff. And so we might get too far into the weeds with a lot of the different marketing things. So it's not easy to market our services. And so I know Les has had his specific challenges with marketing things. And we want to pick his brain and figure out, okay, what did you do to overcome these things? So that's what we got. Les.
Yes, sir.
Give a quick introduction and tell us what was your inspiration to start Less is More Productions.
I'm Les Howard. The company that I run is Less is More Productions, LLC, basically majoring in web design, logo design, print media design, just about anything you could design, I try to do it. I've been doing some form of this since 2002. The business started officially in 2006.
Okay.
And so I've been going pretty steady since then. What really got me into the business, out of college, I was actually a teacher, and I did that I graduated from Jackson State University in 99, and I went right into teaching, but teaching really wasn't the thing I wanted to do. It was more of a convenience. And I just did it because I felt like I needed to go ahead and get a job. And I was a little nervous for some reason. And I just said, I need to try to make some money. I need to do this. So I got into teaching, but it wasn't really my thing. And so during the process of teaching, I was in this gospel singing group, and they needed a website. And since I had a degree in computer science, they said, yeah, you can build a website. So I said, yeah, okay. And so I had this big book. I don't know if you are familiar with Dreamweaver.
Yep.
It was with this, what I'm trying to say. The application was Macromedia. Before they joined on with Adobe, it was Macromedia. And so I learned, it was this big, thick book, and I learned how to use Dreamweaver, learn how to use some other little graphics programs, and that's how I got started. But in the process of doing that, I fell in love with the whole deal, designing websites, designing in general. And I really caught a break because one of my good friends even to this day, he's still a gospel producer, and he knew so many people. I did a website for him, and that just opened the door. And he was basically introducing me to the people he knew. And next thing I knew, I was getting calls from all over the country.
That's what's up.
Yeah, so I could go into that more if you want me to, but that's the genesis. Less is more. Yeah.
So I want to take this and I want to use what you said to recap a couple of the previous episodes we had, because one episode is taking accountability. And the way I see it is, you realize that you wanted to do something independently, but yet take accountability. I got to go do this teaching thing to make sure the lights are kept on and there's food on the table.
Yeah, exactly.
Making that accountable decision. Failure to launch thing, where sometimes you get in there and you have this broad knowledge, but you don't have an application of it. And so the computer science degree, it doesn't always, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't exactly teach you how to build websites. So there's a lot of other stuff that you have to learn on top of that. And
Right.
one of the things is you had a good book knowledge of it, but now we're getting into the application piece and you still had a learning curve to journey through.
Yes, definitely. Because in computer science, in terms of being able to code, I was sharp doing that. And so many different languages I could code in, but design in particular was just a particular niche that we touched on it
Yeah.
in my years at Jackson State. But you got to remember, this was in the 90s. Design was still a new concept.
Yep.
If you see what I'm saying. And so it wasn't like a whole lot of websites. And you didn't have things out here, Wix and Weebly and Squarespace. That didn't exist. If you were going to build a website, you had to learn the code. You had to learn the web authoring programs and all these things. So it was a bit of a learning curve for me. But the thing is, my mind was so geared and wired towards coding and programming, it wasn't that hard for me to pick up. And so I'm glad I got in when I did. I really got in on the ground floor with this thing. And so I can, to this day, sometimes I still pull on those old school methods in my development when I do websites. And I'm the type of guy, I can get in the code and actually, if something's wrong, actually look in the code and see what I can change and correct. Most people, if they don't have that type of experience and something really goes wrong,
right,
there's nothing they can do. You show them the code, what does that mean? Just some gibberish.
Right.
So,
yeah. That's how I felt when I was trying to learn, because I taught myself some really super basic Android app design. And at first it's gibberish, but then as you read it, because my the extent of what I knew about coding was I had a year of C and C plus in high school.
Okay.
And so that was the extent of my knowledge with that. And then I read a little bit about algorithms and stuff like that, and how to program stuff like that. But then jumping in and trying to build an Android app from scratch. And then I'm like, okay, I want to try an iOS app. And that completely, just because Swift was just like, what? Just couldn't get it. But it's a learning thing. And being able to interpret and read the code is a skill that you learn through patience, and you learn it. Real quick. So the last episode I did was about ADHD. And so now I'm about to have an ADHD moment. We was talking about Chat GPT before we came on the air. One plugin I want to put you on, and I can't remember the name of it, but what you can do is you can put the plugin in and tell it what you want it to do. You say, I want this application or whatever I'm working on to do X, Y, and Z. And you plug it in, and it'll spit out the code for you.
Right. Yeah. I've actually played around with that, with Chat GPT.
What's your experience with that?
I'm still trying to embrace it. But at this point, I'm just playing around with it to see what it can do. But it's dope, to be honest, because you say, hey, I want a basic website design with a slider. You can actually tell it what you want, and then it generates the code. And I'm like, it saves a ton of time, whereas you don't have to try to figure all this out on your own. You just tell it what you want, and it'll generate the code. And then from there, which goes back into what I was saying earlier, coding, you can take the code they give you, and then you can manipulate it to what you need it to be. And so that's a huge advantage. And so in terms of just AI in general, I'm of the mindset of just embracing it.
Yep.
And we're gonna have to. I read this story about the advent of the newspaper, and they were saying, it was like people were even saying back then, but the newspaper is gonna stop us from communicating with each other and not really connecting like we should. And it seems every new event of technology or something, you always have these fears coming with these horror stories. And I said, okay, so this nothing's new under the sun. So the AI thing, got a lot of detractors. Some people are scared of it, but it's just a thing that, in my opinion, that you have to embrace and then learn how to use it for your benefit. And so that's my overall take.
To build on that, I know in marketing, one of the things they were talking about, people still misconstrue it. They'll say digital marketing really killed snail mail for marketing and stuff like that. And it's no, Snail mail is still generating more money than anything else in the
Right.
market space. People discount it, but traditional mail is still outperforming a lot of digital marketing things because there's a stickiness to it. Like even printed
Mm,
newsletters, because I do digital newsletters for my clients. Printed newsletters, they have a staying power because you can put a word puzzle or some recipes or something that's going to force them to go back and refer to that piece of material, and they're going to constantly keep seeing your name. You keep adding to the 7 to 12 touch points that people need before they make a decision about interacting with a new business. And just because the new thing exists doesn't mean the old thing goes away. Just like I've said it before, just because you buy a new dog doesn't mean that you can just stop feeding and giving water to the old dog. You got to make sure
exactly.
that you got to make sure that there's enough resources to go around to both. But it is what it is, and I think people read too far into it. I use Chat GPT to rewrite stuff that I've written, and so
Mm.
there's a couple of plugins now that allow it to actually interface directly with the web. And so I'll go to some blog article. Like last week I went back to an old article I wrote in 2015 about why Batman sucks and said, all right, so rewrite this podcast episode for a live stream and focus on these points and bring in some current stuff to talk about. And I let ChatGPT run loose on it. And so I did the live stream using that format last week. And so it wasn't taking anybody else's content, it was utilizing my own, just
Okay.
organizing the thoughts to make them a little bit cleaner and more easy to communicate. And I think a lot of people misconstrue what AI can do. They see this stuff on Mid Journey and all this AI artwork that's coming out. And I know Facebook was awashed with that not too long ago, where everybody is really diving into it. And the reality of it is, if you've ever played around with Adobe Firefly or anything, those AI generative, where it creates the graphics for you, you get somebody with 5 arms and
Yeah.
27 fingers, 2 toes. You can only do
Right.
too much. You can't really utilize that stuff. And it's still learning, and it's only as good as the input that you put into it. And I think people are in this panic about what it means for their careers. People are still going to need artists. People are still going to need writers. The most I could see AI doing is turning active writers into editors. Does that make sense? Where
I got you.
they're doing more copy editing than they are actually doing a ton of writing. Or they write it and then you use some AI to clean up the prose a little bit, and then use some tools like Grammarly to even more sharpen the prose on it and make it concise. From a writer standpoint, some of the stuff that's written when you just give Chat GPT raw code, like raw prompts, it's verbose. It doesn't sound like a person wrote it. And so you still have to edit it, is what I'm saying. That was a long
Right.
about way to say it still requires human input. We ain't at Skynet yet. The Terminators
Not,
ain't the Terminators ain't coming yet.
not
Uh,
yet.
give it a couple more, give it maybe about 4 more years, maybe 2 if we get another Trump presidency. I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
But you know what? One thing I would say that every advance in technology is all about efficiency.
Right.
That's the name of the game. When you think about it, every single advancement, because otherwise we would still be on horse and buggies and all that. You know,
Right.
it's always somebody thinking it's got to be an easier way to do this.
Right.
It's got to be a better way. And so eventually the whole necessity is the mother of invention. Somebody's going to come up with it.
Right.
And that's what happens. So, you know.
Because if we went back and talked to like ourselves in the 80s, right now, just the concept of us doing a live stream, recording to an off-site place with camera we live in a Star Trek right now.
Yeah,
Like as
we're in
far
the Jetsons, man.
we got phones that look like little pocket screens, and we're having video chat and stuff. That is so in our minds back in the 80s, that was so far set in the future that we didn't even know we would be around for it. And right now
Right.
we're doing it. And so the churn of technology, it feels slow because we're experiencing it, but this stuff is happening and the adoption is happening at a rapid pace. It's not a bad thing, but if we forget the stuff that works and pretend like it never worked, then we're losing recipes. The big thing in the video game right now is they're literally video games we grew up with that we can't play anywhere. They don't exist
Wow.
anymore because
Wow.
Nintendo owns the IP, and if they don't release a digital copy of it, you can't access it. I know people have illegal ROMs of it, but Nintendo hit some dude, he getting hit for 30 million for it, just running his little online
Wow.
ROM thing. And so,
Did Soldier Boy get in trouble for
yeah, he got
creating a fake console or something?
he's an intuitive and inventive young man, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
he knew it. But yeah, he got himself in trouble with that. And there's always going to be room for the old stuff, because if you still have your old Nintendo and those old games and they still work, you can play them whenever you want to and no problem. But if you don't, they gone.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I have this. I wish I had it in this room, but I actually had this little digital Nintendo emulator thing. It has 600 games on it.
Yeah.
Some games they don't have. I don't have Mike Tyson Punch Out. That's the one I was looking for, but I just got it. I was at this place called Game Exchange, and they have a lot of retro gaming things in there. And I bought it. It's pretty neat though. It has a lot of games on it, but like you said, there are some games that are lost.
Yeah.
Some of the games I was looking for, it wasn't on there, but still, it's pretty neat. Plug it in and play.
And see, now we off on the sidetrack. Here's what I'll say. I
Yeah, we
do
got it.
have Mike Tyson's Punch Out, or I don't know if it's Mike Tyson's Punch Out or the regular Punch Out, because I can't remember. I think it is regular Punch Out because you fight Mr. Dream at the end.
Oh,
But I have it on my son's Nintendo Switch. He has it.
oh, okay.
He'll come out to me. He's 12. He'll come out to me. Dad, I beat the second ball bull. Good work. I guess the big challenge is making sure that we don't think that just because new technology exists, the old technology becomes irrelevant and stuff like that. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of people fall into is, oh, this thing is old. And so now it's old, not a favor. Now we can just move on. All right. So I'll ask you this. When it comes to less is more productions, LC, who is your target audience?
Target audience, really, for the most part, is established businesses. Really, I would just say in general, established entities. And what I mean by established is at this point, I want to deal with people who know what they're doing, they have a budget, they have a clear goal in mind, they know why they are pursuing me or someone like me to even do a project for them. When I first got started, I would pretty much deal with anybody that had a couple of nickels. And now they need a logo for $50. I go ahead and do it because I needed the money. But at this point, I want to deal with people who are, like I said, who they have a budget, they know what they're doing, they have a clear objective. And so primarily the type of people I deal with, like I said, a lot of churches and ministries, a lot of businesses, nonprofits, things of that nature.
Okay.
And I like to deal with people who are at this point kind of established in what they're doing.
I see, and I know that you have a cut. So you got the web design and the logos and digital flyers and things along those lines. Do you view that as, because it's going to get into a little bit more complex conversation here. Do you view that as separate businesses under one banner, or are they all tied together for you?
You said separate businesses under one banner. Are you referring to, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question because I know for some of my clients, okay, go ahead.
So what I mean by that is I'll talk about I'll talk about Coach Mo Athletics, and I'll talk about ISO words. So one of the things I came across, and this is something I've heard other people mention, and I just really had time to sit down and think about it. Every new service I provide requires different marketing. It requires a different kind of person. They may be a different place in their business journey. And sometimes they cross pollinate, sometimes they don't. And so I've started viewing different services as separate businesses within what I provide. And it's also helped me narrow down stuff,
Mhm.
eliminate stuff that doesn't necessarily serve me or things I don't want to pursue because I've realized every time I start a new venture within CMA or a new service within CMA or ISO words, I have to allocate time and resources and marketing dollars to push that thing.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I got you now.
My frame of reference is a little bit different. And I know I mentioned, I'll probably throw out some Hormozy quotes because he talks about that too. And he just talks about how he turned his vision into a business that acquires other businesses and manages a portfolio of businesses, as opposed to being the direct owner of all the different businesses he had that were in disparate fields. Like I said, when you look at it, do you view it like as all interrelated services? Do the clients frequently do your flyer clients or your website clients cross over to the logo side and do the logo side cross over into the flyers?
Yeah,
Does it cross pollinate or are these separate people?
got you. Yeah, they definitely cross over.
Okay.
Definitely. In fact, I would say a good percentage of my clients need just about every facet of my business. They would
Okay.
need web design, they would need the logo, they need business cards, they need flyers, they need the whole gamut. And so, in fact, for a lot of my clients, that is the selling point because they don't want to deal with a whole lot of different people.
Okay.
They rather deal with somebody that's somewhat of a one-stop shop. And so it's a lot easier for them. And so from my perspective, of course, I still do most of the work, but my thing is I'll take it on, even if it's something that I don't have time to do, I'll still take it on because I know somebody.
Okay.
And I heard Chris Doe say something one time where he said, you sell what you can do, I sell what the world can do. And so that really helped me out and frame my thinking. And so what he meant by that was, it doesn't matter what you ask me to do. I know somebody who can do it. It doesn't matter. I would just be the conduit. I would be the go-between that make sure it gets done. I make sure everybody gets paid, blah, blah, blah. But it will flow through me. And so that's my approach now. But to answer your question originally, yes, it cross-pollinate definitely. And so for a lot of my clients, I do everything for them.
One of the things that I read, and this kind of changed my view of how, because for a long time I struggled with ISL words because initially it started out as me just being a copywriter, like just writing words itself for people. That's where the concept came from. I sell words. I will write your
Mhm.
ads. I'll write your social media posts. I've even ghost written books for people. And it started out as just writing. And then early on, I got pushback from a designer. I respected her and I still do. She's done a lot in terms of production. I think she was involved with the Broadway version of The Lion King and some of the set production and stuff like that, and some of the visual elements of that. And when I spoke with her, she's, I don't know anybody that needs a copywriter. I don't even know any copywriters existed. Instead of seeing that as a challenge, let me
Mhm.
be the first. I'm like, oh shit, I got to figure out something else to do. And so I was like, all right, I know how to do video work and all that. And so I started adding on a bunch of other things in my bag. And I kicked myself for it because I'm like, all the gurus and everything tell you, you need to laser focus on this one thing
Yeah,
and get really
yeah,
good at this one thing. And this was really recently. I saw a quote, and it's the full context of the quote. You heard the jack of all trades, master of none quote. The full context is jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than a master of one.
yeah, yeah. That's
And so it stuck with me like, okay, it's not a bad thing that I know how to do all these different things. And I may be able to address multiple issues just by being myself without having to go outside. And so go outside of what I offer. I can, yeah, you need this written, cool. If you need a video shot, yeah, I can do that too.
And if you don't mind, see, the other advantage is particularly with what I do is it allows me to create brand consistency. So
Right.
if I create the logo, I have a certain style. If the client likes that style, let's say I create the logo and then they take the logo and give it to somebody else to put it on a flyer or something, it may not have the same feel. But if
Right.
they come to me and they say, "Liz, I need a logo, I need 2 flyers, I need a website, business card," okay, it's going to all be consistent because I have a style and I'm going to be able to design it across the board in a similar fashion. And so that's the other part that it's hard for me to say I'm just going to do one thing. It, and in my opinion, really with the things that I do, it's all related anyway. In my opinion, it's so close. I just don't see myself just sticking just to websites or just say I'm the logo guy. I do know people who do that.
Mhm.
So all they do, I know guys who only do websites for particular types of business. That's just how niche they are. We only do websites, and it's only going to be for nonprofits, or it's only going to be for churches, and they do well with that. And I think that's an advantage to that as well. But for me, my philosophy is more of I like that one-stop shop deal. But that's me. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but
It works for you is right. And I went back and forth with it because I'm like, okay, I need to figure out one thing, one industry that I want to dominate and just completely own that industry. And my mind literally doesn't work like that. Like my mind does not process things like that because I instantly start seeing all the different angles and opportunities that are available. And it's almost to the point where it prevents me from being productive because trying to me to think in this straight line and only focus on this one thing. My mind doesn't work like that. I've never, if I'm reading a book, I normally have one book I'm reading, one I'm listening to an audio book, and then that's contextual. So I might have another one I'm listening to at this time. Right now, my daughter and I, when I take her to school, there's this audiobook we listen to, Save the Cat Writes a Novel.
mm,
And it's talking about novel writing for young adults. So there's one that Save the Cat Writes a Novel, and then there's Save the Cat Writes a Young Adult Novel. We listened to
mm,
the first one last school year, and this year we're listening to Writes a Young Adult Novel. And so I'll listen to that, but then I'll switch off to listen to the Alex Ramosey book, or I'll switch off to listen to all these other books based on the context of where I'm at. And so just focusing on that one thing doesn't work because my mind operates in different is it my mindset's different in different contexts, if that makes sense.
oh yeah, I'm the same way. When I'm listening to someone speak, I have to do something else while they're speaking. If I'm literally listening to a speech, I am doodling something, or I may be on my phone. At the same time, I'm picking up everything they're saying. But if you say less, you have to sit there and don't do anything else and listen to them speak. That's going to be a problem for me because my mind is, it's doing 5 different things at one time. And so I guess it comes down to the different learning patterns and the way people receive information. But for me, I'm the same as you. I have to have something else going on. And at the same time, I'm getting everything that you want me to get from you. I'm not ignoring you. I got you.
Well,
But
I think it's one of those things for when you're in the creative space, novelty's the thing that kind of creates that dopamine. You need the novelty, and just sameness is just ugh. You mean the same thing? I know people, their dream is to go out and find a gig where they just go in and just put in the 8 hours
right.
and go home. And that's cool. One thing about I never push business ownership or entrepreneurship as a solution to people because I know that it's not for a lot of people. And a lot of people that think they want to be entrepreneurs, once they get into it and realize it ain't sweet, they don't have a taste for it. And so I wouldn't push that as a solution. If that's what makes them happy, having a job where you just do the same thing every single day and clock out and go home, and every 2 weeks you have a nice, huge check in your account.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, that's for them, and that's great. I would encourage them to follow that every day of the week. For me, it doesn't the sameness, and even the jobs I had before, I worked group homes with kids
Mm,
that have major behavioral issues, every day was a different adventure walking in. You didn't know what you were coming into on a day-to-day basis. And that suited my personality just fine. Then I went into case management, and I love the aspects of case management where I'm out there meeting families and in the streets, even trying to figure out where my kid that ran away went, or going to the courthouse to try to keep this other kid from going to jail. That was entertaining for me. The stuff that sucked was the other stuff where I got to clock in, sit down, write this paperwork, do all this other stuff. And that was hard for me. And so I like jobs that, even before I went independent, I like jobs where I didn't quite know what to expect on a day to day basis. That's what kept me
Gotcha.
engaged with it. The moment it became, oh, this is predictable.
Right.
e- Even when I was managing my own, like the 2 times I had when I was a residential director, that's still an adventure, because not only are you dealing with kid issues, but you're dealing with staff acting like kid issues. And these two staff are fighting, they ain't getting along, they beefing or whatever, fighting over, they got the same boyfriend, they just found out, and they beefing with each other and stuff. Like, addressing those kind of issues was engaging and entertaining for me. And that's what kept me in the game. But, that for creative brains, that novelty is a thing that gives you dopamine. For other people, consistency and knowing where their money's coming from, and knowing it's not really based on how many clients they get this month,
Yeah.
it is the thing that gives them dopamine and peace. And I get it. And that's why, like I said, I run an entrepreneurship podcast. I have a service that teaches people how to launch their businesses and things along those lines. I don't push this entrepreneurship life on anybody, because it ain't for everybody.
Man, it's definitely not sweet. In terms of, if this is your passion, if you have a passion for a particular business or a thing, I would say go for it. But I've never told people this is easy. And this is not me trying to pump myself up. I'm just saying it's not easy. And if you get joy in just clocking in and clocking out, man, by all means do that. For me, I tried it. Like I said, I taught high school for 7 years, and it just wasn't for me. I had a good rapport with my students. I think a lot of them, as I learned learn how to teach and really deal with kids, it was cool. And I have some, even now, they're grown and all this stuff, who still shout me out and talk about some of the things that I've taught them, really helped them in life and all that. And that was great, but it just wasn't for me. You see what I'm saying? And so I'd rather, because, for example, even being on this podcast right now, if I had a regular day job, I couldn't do it at least during this time of the day. I probably couldn't do it, because I probably wouldn't be getting off of work to 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And so just being able to have the freedom to adjust my schedule as I need to do some of the things I want to do, I love it.
And that's the trade-off. I'm looking at the camera now, because I'm talking to the person that thinks they want to be an entrepreneur because they saw a video on YouTube and dude's telling them that they can make $20,000 in this month by quitting a job and starting drop shipping stuff from China, or quitting a job and flipping stuff on Amazon. I've done both of those things. I had
Right.
a job when I was doing that. And once I got my hands into it, I'm like, it looks like fun and it's glamorous, but man, you get tired of going into stores and finding stuff to buy and then scanning it and seeing if it'll sell on Amazon, and then taking it home and packing it up and shipping it out to Amazon and then waiting for it to sell. That's not fun, man. Unless you absolutely love doing that and going to all the thrift stores and going to Ross and finding them Jordans that shouldn't be on sale.
Right.
Unless you absolutely love it, I wouldn't advise you to stop your 9 to 5. You can have it as a side hustle, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
Very few things where I would just say, oh, you need to 100% just give up your job and go chase this thing. Because again, this world ain't for everybody. So we're going to get into a little bit of that piece of it, because we're going to do this and then we're going to take a quick break. So we want to talk about challenges that you've had with your marketing with less is more productions. And first thing is dealing with competition. And I have a specific view on competition, but have you had to deal with competition in your space and people trying to undercut you and stuff like that?
Yes. It's competition, man, that's a trip because especially when I first got started off, there's always somebody trying to undercut what you're doing. So in terms of pricing.
Right.
And so I used to be involved in that race to the bottom situation where, it's almost like I became like a mini Walmart, except I didn't really have the capacity of a Walmart, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Low prices. Yeah, I guess I could do it for 70. Yeah, 'cause I got a cousin. He said he could do it for 65. Okay, I can do it for 60. And you get into that situation. And I think I've said this to you before, but one thing that changed my mind when I heard Magic Johnson say that it takes him just as much work to make $1 million as it does for him to make 100 million. It's just a matter of, so when someone calls him, because he's on that level, someone calls him with $1 million deal, he doesn't take the call. If you call Magic Johnson about a business deal, he's dealing in the 9 figures. That's why everything you see him do, he's buying the Washington Commanders, or he's on that level. He's not on the level of, if he's going to get involved in let's say he want to buy some Dunkin' Donuts, he's not going to buy 2.
Right.
He's going to buy 100. Everything he's doing is 8, 9-figure deals. And so that's, from a relative standpoint, that's the level that's the way I think now. Mm-hmm. But when I first got started, the challenge was trying to deal with other people who were cheaper than me. Now here's the thing I realized too. And the one advantage I do have is that I do not sell a product. And what I mean is, if I sell a Chevy and somebody else got the same Chevy, yeah, okay, you may have to CKU battle on their price. It's the same exact car. Right. I'm selling art. That's right. The way I look at it. And so I have a niche. My niche is the style in which I design everything that I do. And once I realized that kind of gave me a little niche, a little way of saying, okay, yeah, you could go with the cheaper guy, but let's actually compare the design. You need a flyer. He designed a flyer. Look at his flyer, and I look at mine. And because of that subjectivity, that gives me an advantage in some cases. Now, in some cases, the other guy may be better. Okay, cool. But I like that game. Because I can work on my skill and get better and better. Right. And it goes into the whole blue ocean strategy. I'm not going to compete with everybody trying to go low prices. I'm going to set my price, and then I'm going to get better at what I do. What I'm trying to do is be one of the dopest designers that you know. That's what I'm trying to do. And that's where I am that's my whole philosophy at this point. And so that's how I'm able to really, be honest, stay in business and keep doing what I'm doing.
And I think it hits a couple of things. First, Magic, if you're watching this and you want to talk a couple of them stray $1 million deals,
let's go.
At me and Les, we'll take it.
We will take it.
Contact information down here. Toss us some of these $1 million deals, bro. We want them, and we will give you. I will shut everything else down just to work on that $1 million deal. Right, a couple of weeks or a couple of months, however long it takes. But exactly. The other thing is that what you're mentioning goes into the concept of the pricing strategy. And we were having this conversation online because me and Les just it's not just the podcast that we speak. We interact in other places. And there's a video clip I posted of Meek Mill at, I think it was a shoe convention or whatnot. And so he's sitting there talking to dude, and he's sitting there talking to the dude who had the shoes. And dude had shoes like, hey, the shoes going to cost you $500. And Meek made a production out of it. He had his people recording it and the whole nine. And he thought he was giving a lesson to this dude. And no shade to Meek. If you watching, no shade to Meek. Hope you watching. Got our fingers crossed. But basically the concept was, he's like, I'm giving you game. If you take if you knock $100 off these shoes, then I can do a commercial for you. And then I give you, and then you can not only have the commercial and the endorsement, but then you have the sale too. And two, now just give me my $500 and I'll be good. And the concept was, my take on it was, dude's already in a viral video of Meek Mill, and he still got paid full price for them shoes. If he got on camera giving a discount to the shoes, that sends the message that those shoes aren't worth what he's charging for them. And he'll have everybody and their mom lining up to get the Meek Mill discount. And he'll never be able to charge full freight for them shoes. What happens when you get into the negotiations on prices with people, or you lead with the discount, and it's a discount you don't want to make, you feel like you have to make. You're saying this service isn't worth what I'm charging for it. And sometimes if you price, even if you give people top flight services, but they feel like they're underpaid for them, there's a psychological thing where they'll start picking it apart and start finding problems with the discount service. Whereas if they would have paid 10 times what they paid, or 5 or 10 times what they paid for that service, there's a other psychological element where they will optimize the situation in their mind and say, no, this is exactly what I asked for. And they're rationalizing because of how much they paid for it. And so the price thing is a subtle signal about the value of what you're offering. Either be the cheapest priced or be the most expensive. You don't want to be third cheapest option. And so when you give that discount, and this is for my fledgling business owners who didn't take my advice earlier and keep their day jobs. If you out here and trying to figure out how to set your price, you want to be reassuringly expensive for what you do. And I stole that from Ty Turner from Flash Film Academy. But that reassuringly expensive, because if they pay enough, they see the value in it and they don't have much to pick apart. If they feel like they got your services on discount, there's always something wrong with it. How many times have you had a flawless meal from McDonald's in your mind? Now, if you would have got that same McDonald's meal at a high-end restaurant and paid 5, 10 times what you paid at McDonald's, that little quarter pounder that meal. Last time I checked, the meals is expensive now. So that little quarter pounder meal that you got that started out as $8, $9 is now $90.
Right.
You would have optimized it and said, man, the fries were amazing and burger, you know what I'm saying? You would have optimized because you had to rationalize how much you spent on that thing. So the wisdom we putting in here is stand firm on your pricing. And you want people to say, man, that's expensive. Yeah, it is, because I'm giving you high quality work. But if you're like, oh, it is, man, let me see how much I can knock it down. Now they're going to start questioning the quality of work that you're putting in. The only people that I've seen that actually appreciate when somebody does something for free or barters for something is somebody I'm not going to say the only person, because there's plenty of people do it, but business owners have a taste for that, where you're like, okay, we're bartering for services, or you see the value in the discount and you're getting a lot of value out of the thing you didn't pay a lot for. Most people ain't wired like that. Let's keep it up. All right, go ahead.
If I could say one more thing about that too, and my take on it, the reason I push back when people try to lower my price, I don't like when other people try to dictate my pricing. Really, I have a thing about people trying to tell me what to do. Maybe that's just a thing. But my thing is this, because there have been times where I'm in a situation, I say, you know what, man, I'm going to give you $100 off. I can feel it. I can feel that if I take off something, this may be beneficial to both of us. But a lot of times, if I don't feel it and you come, now it's one thing to request. You have the right to request.
Right.
Once I say, man, I'm not feeling it, okay, I don't want to get in the back and forth with you about the way I price my stuff. At this point, you either gonna buy it or you're gonna go with somebody else. If you got a cousin that can do it for cheaper, then go to your cousin. Why did you come here in the first place?
Exactly.
I just wanted to throw that out there. That's just my little pet peeve. And can I say one more thing too?
Yeah, go for
Here's the other thing. What you said was correct. When you set yourself as the guy who's the cheapest in town guy, what happens is they tell their friends he's the cheapest in town. Now you're going to get a whole lot of people that are just like them. Now you spend your time on clients who all want the 50% discount, and you become the clearance rack guy, so to speak.
And that's true. And that's one of the things we've talked about is don't pay me with exposure, because all that does is exposes me to more people who don't pay.
That's it.
The concept is, and in the creative services, you still have to build a portfolio. And sometimes you do have to take pro bono work, but you're taking it because you are deciding that's what you're going to do, not because somebody came and said, "Hey, do this for me for free, and I'll show it to 1,000 people." That doesn't work.
That's not
But
gonna work.
going back to what you're saying, I was talking to my barber about this yesterday. That I think part of I don't like people telling me what to do. I think that's why I don't like necessarily shopping traditionally for cars. Like, I avoid going to the car dealership like the plague. I hate it. Last little dude, I think I traumatized him out of the business, because I'm dead serious. Because I came in with my notebook. I said, "This is how much I'm going to pay for this car. I have cash on hand. Don't send me back to the financing person. I'm not going to sit here and wait. If you keep me waiting more than 45 minutes, you're going to lose this sale." And he started playing, and I think he was new. He started playing the auto dealer game where he draws that little cross and puts the numbers in there and makes the numbers do what he wants them to do. Math don't really add up. Math don't really math. Then he broke my rule. I said, "Hey, man, I'm not here to play around with you. This is the car I want. This is how much this car is worth. This is how much I'm going to pay for it. I'm not going to pay it. I'm not going to pay a penny more. I have the money in the bank to buy it right now." And he started playing that. "How about we give you the car and let you test drive it till you're home, and you leave your car here?" I said, "I ain't got time for this. I'm out."
Wow.
And I got up and walked out. And I mean, like a bitter ex, this dude's calling me, blowing my phone up, trying to reach me. "Oh, I got this other car." Nah, bro, you blew the chance. I dictated the terms on what I wanted to do business. And you didn't want to do business on the terms. And so it's fine. I don't expect you to bend what you do to my will, but understand that I'm not going to do business your way. I'm going to do it my own. And the other side is the power dynamic shifted because the dealership called me to try to buy back my car. I'm happy with my car. My joint's paid off.
Wow.
I ain't in no agreement or nothing. I had the car outright, and they called me in. "Oh, we got another vehicle that you want." All right, cool. Looked at it like, "That's a nice car. I ain't paying that much for it, bro. How much you want to pay?" "Okay, this is how much." "All right, now here are my rules. I ain't gonna play this game with you. I'm not gonna do the car where we spend 8 hours at the car dealership game where I'm sitting in this chair." And I think I threw them off because the first thing they do when you walk in is they offer you something to drink.
That's comfortable.
Yeah, well, they try to get you comfortable. It's also a reciprocal thing, because if they give you refreshments like a free bottle of water or a soda that costs them 25 cents to produce, they're hoping that you reciprocate by buying a $20,000 car or $50,000 car with an interest rate on it. They're hoping that you reciprocate by doing that, and it's really successful.
It works. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That reciprocity thing, it works, man. They give, like you say, they give you a candy bar. "Hey, we got refreshments over here," and you like, "Oh, okay, great. Okay, now let me buy this $50,000 car I can't afford." What?
I think I threw him off of his game because he's, "Can I get you something to drink?" "No, I got my own water here. I'm cool." And then he saw that, all the things he was trying wasn't working, because I'm like, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to." It's not you. It's like all you got to do is take the puppy home for a night and see how you feel about the puppy overnight. And then you take the puppy home, and then the puppy never comes back. You keep the puppy. I'm not taking this car home, bro. I ain't going to sit there and fall in love with this car and get used to acclimate and see myself driving this car, man. I did the test drive. Until this car is purchased, it's going to sit up here, and I'm gonna keep driving my car because I'm not going to acclimate myself to it. And it threw him off his game. But the story I'm trying to convey is As the business owner, I get to dictate the terms of what we do business and how we do business.
Right.
And a lot of people that are on the consumer side, specifically when you're in the creative industry and you're providing artwork like you are, they want to come in and try to haggle with you because they feel like they got you. He needs clients. He needs this business. Well, that's not always exactly the case. I'm choosing to do business with you, but I can also choose not to do business with you. And I can choose
Right.
not to do it on your own not to do it on your terms. They got to be terms that are agreeable to me. And a lot of early stage business owners, either they're not at that stage yet, or they can be at that stage. They just don't feel comfortable enough asserting themselves and saying, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I'll admit, it's not the easiest thing to do to say, you know what, my price is my price. This is how I do business, blah, blah, blah. But if you could get over that hurdle, man, it's beneficial because in my opinion, it hurts more to do it for the cheap. And on the long run, that I've been in that situation several times. It hurts, man, because now that very client that you sold, that you're doing this thing for $100, whatever, they are on you like crazy.
Right.
They're acting like this is a $10,000 price. This ain't quite right. Can you make the yellow a little bit more yellower? Oh my goodness. And so then that $100 disappears in a day.
Right.
Now you feel like you're doing the work for free. And I'm trying to, and I'm still not quite there, but I want to get to the point for all of my clients where when they call me, it's no issue. I don't feel nothing. And what I mean is I've charged them enough money where call me anytime, email me anytime. I didn't charge you enough. Let's go. But I'm saying, but that feeling you have where you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, you didn't charge them enough. You see what I'm saying? And that's my opinion.
And my thing is, and then we'll take a break after this. My take on this is, and I'm talking from personal experience, every time I've actually chased a client and compromised my vision or compromised my price, I've always regretted it. Always. It's always been something I ended up regretting where I'm like, I didn't charge them enough, or I chased them down and did business on their terms and practically begged for their business. I always regretted it because they never quite valued the level of effort that I was actually putting in to it. I'm writing something. I'm putting my heart and soul into that thing I'm writing, I'm creating. If I'm doing a service for you, I'm putting my heart and soul into it. And I'm going to try to give you my absolute best. And sometimes when you make that compromise, they're already predisposed to think, but they're willing to come off their square so easily. They're going to take shortcuts with my stuff. And you turn into that. So that's where we're at. And so that's the challenge. So what we're going to do is I got a few more questions to ask Les. We're going to take a quick pause for the calls to break things up, and then we'll be right back. All right, we're back with Les. We got a couple of more things, and then we're gonna wrap up here. We've talked about challenges and the market through Les's eyes. And so what we want to get into is a little bit more in the weeds, talking about marketing strategies and the importance of testimonials and all the other stuff. Les, what kind of marketing strategies have you used to grow Les's More Productions LC?
One thing I want to do is I'm not sure if we clearly define what marketing is.
Okay.
And so I do want to touch on that a little bit, if you don't mind. What a lot of people do these days, they advertise. Advertising is a subset of marketing. It's not fully marketing. And so basically my take on marketing is I am trying to solve a problem. And the money and the response that I want to get from that part is a byproduct. The money's going to come. Right. But one thing I'm learning, and I think I heard this on a Chris Doe podcast once, but basically people are inherently out for themselves. People are not out here looking for I sell words or less is more production to give money to. They're not trying to give us money. What they are trying to do is to solve a problem. I am having problems with copywriting. I'm having problems with graphics, blah, blah, blah. Can you help me solve this problem? We say yes. And then we say, okay, but in order to solve this problem, this is how much we expect to be compensated for. And so my overall strategy in marketing at this point is to really focus on the client and solving their problem.
Okay.
And if I can do that effectively, I'm going to get the results that I'm looking for. Because one of the things I used to do when I would market my business, and I still do a lot of stuff on social media, but I would put my prices on there. I would come out with different deals and I put the pricing. The problem with that is that's when you start to become a commodity. You got this price, and then people start to nitpick at the price. That's what you bring to them from the forefront. Hey, the price is the most important thing. And then they say, what if I could get it a little cheaper? But now my approach is I'm asking questions. I'm trying to diagnose the whole situation. Okay, what do you really need?
Right.
Why do you need it? Okay, and then I write a prescription. I say, okay, this is what we can do based on what you told me, and this is how I can make this. And once they have the ease of mind, like, okay, man, this problem can be solved. Then now they're gonna have even if your price is high, now they're gonna in their mind they're gonna say, hey, do I really want to pay this? I think I do because I really want this problem solved. And do I feel like taking out the time to find somebody else? And they may not even be able to do it. And then on top of that, I have case studies. I can simply just direct them to my website and literally show them hundreds of examples of stuff I did just like they want me to do for them. I have really thousands of examples over the years. And I hope I'm answering your question, but this is basically my approach to marketing now. I'm really trying to get out of the commodity space. I'm really trying to be that guy. I want to be that recommended guy. And it happens a lot. You see it on Facebook, I'm looking for such and such guy who can do this and this. If your name is the name that comes up, that means you have created some type of reputation for yourself that people could trust you to say, hey, man, yeah, go to Brian for this. Go to Les for this. And that's what I'm really trying to do is continue to build my brand, build a reputation, not be the lowest guy, lowest price in town guy, but I want to market in a way where, man, this guy's so dope. And, man, I'll pay double for what he's bringing in for us. I'll pay double that. And so that's my marketing approach right now.
And to build on what you were saying, my role as a marketing strategy is consultant, coach, whatever the definition depending on the context is. My job is to help you find the people that have that specific problem that you solve. So to me, that's the art of marketing, is finding the market, finding the people that have that specific problem that needs solved and have the money to pay for that problem to be solved with your method. And so that's it. It does relate. And I think a lot of times people get so caught up in just the advertising piece, the old school janky promoters. We gonna go lay all these flyers down. We're gonna print off 150 flyers and put them on cars everywhere. Well, that's great. But if you're really trying to get a crowd of 300 people, then you need to have 3,000 flyers to lay out somewhere. You got to think bigger than just what the little bit of you're doing. And that's how I view it. I see it from a 10,000 foot view. Where can I find this subsegment of people that have this specific problem? And where do they congregate online? And how many different places can I find? And how many trends can I identify from dealing with that group? So I know that they have a proclivity for this or they like this. And so now I can start tracking them and finding them and stuff. And I think I'm getting a little bit tangential, but I think that's why a lot of business owners struggle when they do the advertising piece on social media, because social media sites intentionally make it really super easy for you to click a button and put money in and boost a post or promote whatever you're doing. But they don't tell you the back end tools that you need to really fine tune and sharpen that and reach a broader audience. They don't necessarily target the ad for you when you create it. And so they're not going to show it to people that have the problem that you're trying to solve. They're going to show it to everybody. And you're going to burn through your budget a lot faster. And so I get, yeah, it's about figuring out who needs you to solve their problem. And that's really what the marketing piece is. And that's what creating products and services is really about. There are a lot of people who have great business ideas, but they don't really solve anybody's problem. So they don't exist. It's hard to get business to them. The other day I was driving by, matter of fact, I was driving by a little strip mall in Omaha, and there's this clothing store. I'm not going to put them out on blast. But the first time I drove by them about a year ago, I'm like, wow, I've never heard of that. And ain't nobody going in there. And they're going to be gone in a year. And lo and behold, I drove by and they were gone in a year. And the problem was they created their own, they had an idea for a cool, catchy sounding little name. And that's what they ran with. But there's no demand for that name. They didn't build up anything around that name. There's no anybody clamoring for their gear. And so there's no market for it, is what I'm saying. A couple of people saw it and thought it was cool, and nobody bought it. And that's what the problem is. There's a lot of people out here who don't really have a defined problem or defined market in mind when they create a product or service, and then it ends up tanking. And so I understand what you're talking about with the problem solving piece of it. I get it.
And people need to know, even when you talk about the business that you solve, even if you can solve the problem for people, they need to know you exist. So another strategy is being consistent. And now I still haven't really gotten into the content creation part as far as YouTube and video, that's like my weak point. And that's something I want to get into. But every successful, let's say, YouTuber I ever heard, the one thing they say is you got to post every day, stay consistent. And I even heard MKBHD talk about he posted something like, he started posting when he was like 13, 14 years old.
Right.
He had already posted 300 videos before he even had 5,000 subscribers. Nobody really knew who he was, and he had already posted that many videos. And then at some point it popped off, but imagine that you had to post, and I think you're doing it now.
Right.
Where you're in the space, because I see you posting all the time, and that's what it takes to be successful. You have to post so much stuff in order to eventually get to the point where people notice, oh, okay, Brian is out here doing some things. And then what happens is all your older videos end up having a long tail and people start going back to stuff, that you did before. But it takes that much effort. You're not just going to put out one video or put out one, in my case, develop one website and spend, oh, okay, now I'm Bill Gates or whatever. It's not going to happen.
It's the myth. One thing is it takes a long time to be overnight success. And sometimes, even not posting out stuff, the view count is, especially on YouTube, the view count is abysmal. It's not going anywhere. But I know that it's consistent. And so if I can consistently reach 50, 60, 70, 120, 130, 400 people consistently, eventually it'll start building upon itself. And so I constantly post, but most of my views come from like TikTok or Instagram or whatever. But it takes a long time. You got to keep chopping. And I think one of the things, and it's a recent manifestation in culture, is the myth of this viral celebrity. A lot of these viral celebrities have been out there. A lot of these viral content creators, for either they've been out a long time and you're just now discovering them, or they finally had the one video that cracked the code and exploded. But you go and they have a whole library of stuff that never exploded. Or they are truly that one hit person. And since they have no library, they are quickly forgotten about. since there's no
Exactly.
other content to go through. And the consistency piece is this: whether you post once a day, whether you post once a week, whether you post once a month, whether you post once every 2 months, you got to post. You have to be on
Right.
that schedule and consistently post stuff. And it's going to take a long time because your first videos, your first podcasts, your first website, your first photo shoot, it's going to suck. It's going to be bad. And that's okay. The only way you learn is by doing it and having it bad. Even now in the car, I'm driving here and I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and remaster the first 2 episodes of this podcast because the audio isn't anywhere where I want it to be. And I have to figure out where it got screwed up in my process. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go back because I'm planning my weekend out. I got some client work to do, and then I gotta remaster 2 episodes of this podcast because the audio isn't where I want it to be. You learn, it's an evolving thing. And the only way that I can have the knowledge to go back and remaster it is by actually doing it and putting it out there and realizing, okay, I'm not happy with how this turned out. And I figure out what happened and reverse engineer it from there. But some people are really expecting to be this overnight thing. And I think TikTok has really exacerbated this, where people don't have valuable content, or they have the one video that connects and then they spend all this time trying to chase that one popular video, and then they make a bunch of other subpar videos trying to duplicate the success of what they're doing, as opposed to having a bunch of related videos that are probably equal in content but are different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have a library of stuff that shows what they're able to do. And so I get what you're saying. And people are expecting their business just to hit overnight. Most businesses don't hit overnight. Most well-funded startups fail. I was watching something, I think How Business Works or whatnot. They're talking about the Forbes 30 under 30, which sounds impressive getting on it. But when you realize it's actually 600 people every year, the 30 under 30 piece doesn't really make a lot of sense. They're talking about what percent is a high percentage of the people in the 30 under 30 that end up going to jail because they end up cutting corners in their growth track with business. And so
Wow.
this myth of the viral celebrity, I think hurts a lot of people because they aren't accustomed to the concept of you have to put in a lot of work and see no return for a long time to be an overnight success.
Nice. Yeah, that's what it takes, man. It's weird, but that's the way it goes. Something else I want to point out too, when in terms of gaining trust with clients and things of that nature, a lot of times your clients they don't necessarily trust you, but they do trust the person that told them about you. So the whole word of mouth thing is, I've gotten a lot of business through social media just by clients sharing my post
Yep.
on their page. And anytime somebody do that for me, man, that's love, because you do not have to share anything that I do. But I actually have fans.
Yeah.
There are people who, I'm talking about, every single time I post something, whether it's on Facebook, whatever, they like, love, or share the post. I'm talking about every single time. Every time I post something, it's the same group of people. And those are the people that are really keeping you in business, because they know other people, and eventually somebody gonna say, "Hey man, I just seen this post, that you've been sharing this guy. What about him?" And then they word of mouth, they get to talk, and they're calling you, and you got another client. And so for me, I think that's effective too, where you build enough trust with people that they are willing to, quote unquote, testify about you. And that's a big deal, because one of the biggest hurdles for clients is finding somebody they can trust and don't feel like they're going to rip them off or some kind of scam. Sometimes they just have that comfort of knowing, okay, I got this guy for this thing and they're going to do a good job and I can pay them. For a lot of clients, if you do them right, man, they'll stick with you for a decade. you know,
And we talked about paying with exposure earlier. That's how you pay somebody with exposure, where you show
right.
their good work. You're not expecting anything in return. You're just doing it because you believe in what they're doing and you want to tell people how great they are. That's how you pay people with exposure.
Exactly.
Paying with exposure isn't give me your services for free and then I'll tell people about you. No, I paid for these services. I think they're high value. Take a look and see what kind of work they've done. Have you considered putting that into your workflow, like requesting where you informally request a testimonial or even directly ask for a testimonial or share the work I've done for you?
I've done something like that before, but that's probably something I need to put more focus on. That's a good, what you just said, that's a good idea to reinforce that. Because people, when we're talking about YouTube,
Mhm.
YouTubers do it all the time. Share, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. They do it all the time. Because sometimes, and I've actually heard a YouTuber say that at one point he wasn't saying that little tag,
Mhm.
share, subscribe, whatever, and his numbers went down. And when he started back, just saying the little tag, share, subscribe, like, blah, 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 it just, everything went back up. So sometimes you do have to mention, because sometimes people just don't think about it. You have to remind them, hey, share my stuff, like it, and they'll do it.
That's a good prompt for me. Like, share, and subscribe to the podcast for the Unstuck sessions. If you like these kind of conversations,
They,
hit me up at mail@isellwords. That's MAIL at isellwords.net. I'll scroll it here in a little bit, or you'll find it in the show notes if you want to be a guest or you have any input or any questions that I can answer on the podcast. The idea, I think, Les, is you want to trade on those good feelings. Like when you solve a problem for somebody, they feel good about what you've done for them. And so now you're trading on those good endorphins that you've given them and say, okay, so if you really what I did, then tell somebody about me. Spread the word. And it's that trading of, okay, I've done this thing for you and you're happy and pleased with the service. Now go tell people about me and bring more
right,
people that are like you. Because invariably they're going to bring people that have their similar interests or whatnot into the fold, which is exactly what you want. So that's how you use testimonials and things like that. And though the fact that somebody does business with you, that does cross that line of you can step away and not have to work as hard to gain their trust because somebody they trust recommended you. I like that. All right.
exactly.
We're going to briefly hit networking collaborations, and then we're going to talk about the future of less is more productions. With collaborations, we talked a little bit about it off air. Have you had any really great collaborations or anything or networking with other businesses? And tell me how it's benefited the growth of your business.
Yeah, I've done some what I call ghost designing for other companies. So basically, as a ghost designer, what that is, it's almost like any other, whether you're a ghost writer or whatever. You don't necessarily get the recognition for the work you do, but you do the work. It's an agreed upon term where, hey, I pay you this, you design whatever, and they get all the credit for the bigger project that they are working on, and you just did your piece on it. And I've done a few of those. And the advantage, one of the things that's helped me out is when you're working with somebody else, you get to see their process of how they work, and some, you pick up some things from that. I don't claim to know everything myself. I don't claim to be the best.
Mhm.
And sometimes you get in a situation where you are working with somebody else who's a little better than you, have a bigger platform, and you're able to see they actually kind of showing you some of their trade secrets when you're working with them sometimes. And they may not try to do that, but it's just since you're working with them, they say, okay, we need this done like this, blah, blah, blah. And you pick up. So what I try to do is just learn what I can learn from them, get my money and get out.
Right.
But that's some of the benefits of working with somebody else. So I've had some collaborations of that sort, and it's been pretty good for me, you know.
Good. And yeah, from the business side, plus it's steady work and you get to soak up all that free game from other people doing the same thing. And I know they've called it white label services and things along those
Right.
lines, plenty of different names for it. From when we talked about it a little bit, and I know it's an avenue that you're looking into possibly. like networking groups and things along those lines with other business owners. Especially if you're in a field that works that business owners are going to come to, like design work or marketing services and stuff like that, there is a benefit in being in the right kind of business networking groups, because then you have that consistency. You can build trust. People see you frequently and they really get a sense of your philosophy, your design philosophy, and then they get to determine on whether they want to do business with you. And so those are the other networking options that are out there. And for us locally around here, there's Centersphere and there's a couple of other groups that are out there. But I know nationally, there's a lot of different kind of business to business networking groups. And I think that there'd be a benefit for you to check them out. But I know that just for in general, for business owners, that's a good place to go to soak up game from some established people and some major, you might even be in the room with some major players, and you may be able to set up time to sit down and talk with them and learn some stuff. What Alex Hormozy puts it as paying down your ignorance debt. So when you start a business, you have a lot of debt. You have your cost related debt with actual cash and stuff. And then there's an ignorance related debt that you have to pay down before you start being successful, and it allows you to pay down that ignorance debt.
I like that.
All right, let's see. All right, so what do you have coming up for Less is More Productions? What can we expect in the future from you?
In the future, I really want to do more video production, video editing. One service that I'm really getting into, I design flyers, but I have this thing called enhanced flyers that I'm doing now. And so basically it's almost the same flyer design, but now it has animation, it has sound, video included. So it's a little bit more interactive. Okay. And so it's just a doper way to present the same flyer design. And so specifically, that's one of the new things I'm doing. Overall, I'm just trying to grow, man. I have a son who's 14, he'll be 15 soon, and he helps me out with a lot of things. And by him being a younger demographic, he has his pulse on what's new. Okay, he's quick to tell me what's lame.
They always are.
It's just all of a sudden I'm the old guy who doesn't know anything. But he kind of puts me on game with a lot of things that's going on now. And so I want to grow in that space and really stay relevant in my business. And one thing I wanted to mention earlier, the name, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to name my business, I purposely named it Less is More Productions instead of Less is More Designs, because I didn't want to put myself in a box. I want to produce. So at some point, let's say I start doing websites, I can still keep the same name. Whatever, maybe I could start doing some CGI work for a major movie studio company. I could still be Less is More Productions. And so I wouldn't have to change my name into things. I want to keep things open and just continue to learn and grow and add more services to what I do. And like I said, I've said this before. I told my wife this one time. I want us to go to a movie. It might be a Marvel movie, and you see my logo, because all of these big studio companies, they subcontract their work to. When you see all those names, they deal with literally hundreds of companies to make these movies. Various tech companies, they do VFX work, CGI. They hire outside companies for this work. And if you're good, they'll hire you. And so I just say, hey, one day we'll go to a movie, you'll go to a movie and you just see the LP up there. And I know that's a very broad future thing, but that's like a big picture dream situation.
I think, I like that. And I think your pathway might be those enhanced flyers. If you could really beef up the media on those, that could turn into something that can create that future for you. So I'm excited to see what you got coming. I got some ideas that we could talk about offline for the lurkers out there. They're looking to vulture some ideas, but I think that's great. So how can people reach you?
Of course, you see my website, lessismorepro.com. I am also on IG. It's Less is More Photos. You can search me on Facebook. I recently got on Threads. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to navigate that. I'm pretty much just whatever I'm putting on IG, I put on Threads because they're cousins. And soon, I'm also on TikTok. Just search Lessons More Productions, you'll find me. And so I'm out there.
Okay.
And soon I will be a YouTube content creator. Just look out.
All right. Let me
Yes,
know
sir.
how I can help out with that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we definitely need to talk.
Yeah. So you know how to reach Les. I really appreciate the time, bro. We gotta
Yes,
get
sir.
together and do this again. I just gotta figure out what the next topic's gonna be.
Yes, sir.
And I'll probably bring you on for the Batman when I do Batman slander on Blurting While Dad, my other channel where I get to talk
Right.
about comic book stuff.
Let's do it.
We're gonna have a good time with that one. I really appreciate y'all's time. Again, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you share this with a business owner or somebody that's considering business or somebody that you think this can help out, because that's the real way that are going to show value, or you're going to confer our value to them. Show it to somebody who needs it. And
Right.
maybe this is going to help them get through a tough time, or maybe help them solve some problems that they may be having. And like I said, if you have any topics you want us to discuss, or anything that we discussed in this episode that you want me and Les to go deeper into, shoot me an email and then we will sit down and put together the episode for you. So I appreciate y'all's time and attention to this. Again, this is the Unstuck sessions, and we're hoping you get unstuck here. So thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later. Peace.